I'm Johanna Derlega, publisher of The Hill, and welcome to The Cost of Caring, Family Caregivers, and Tax Reform. I'd like to thank our sponsor, AARP, for making this event possible. Our conversation today will put the spotlight on the many Americans who, while working, are providing unpaid care to family members and relatives to help them live independently at home and out of more costly institutional care. The timing of this discussion could not be more opportune. While tax reform negotiations have gained traction in the nation's capital, bipartisan efforts are also underway in Congress to provide a tax credit to working family caregivers. The administration's tax overhaul plan includes tax relief for child care and dependent expenses. We are here this morning to discuss the approach Congress is likely to take and examine the cost-benefit ramifications of a new tax credit. Just a few things to keep in mind before we get underway. We just ask that you silence your cell phones, but please do join the conversation on social media. You can follow us on Twitter at The Hill Events, and you can also comment using the hashtag #CostOfCaring. Without that, I'd like to now invite Nancy Lamond, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief Advocacy and Engagement Officer of AARP, to provide brief remarks.
Well, we want to thank The Hill and want to thank all of you for being here today. I know that you are very happy this is a very air-conditioned room. We have ahead of us an interesting discussion with a bipartisan group of congressional leaders, Senator Ernst, Senator Baldwin, Congressman Donovan, and Congressman Lujan Grisham. And we want to thank all of them for taking time out of what we know is a very busy schedule to come to this bipartisan and bicameral oasis. If there's one issue we believe has the power to unite us across parties and ideologies, across age, income, and gender, it's the issue of family caregiving. At kitchen tables across America, real families are confronting the same questions. How will we care for mom and dad or another loved one if something happens and they can't care for themselves? And 40 million Americans like you and me, and actually by a show of hands, how many of you are or have been family caregivers? Well, that's a kind of statement that we can underscore today. 40 million of us are already caring for loved ones. Many of us can picture, and our data reveals, a so-called typical family caregiver, a woman 49 years old, working full-time and spending 24 hours each week caring for her mother. But in this case, that data masks a broader picture. The job of family caregiver doesn't discriminate, not based on age, gender, employment status, sexual orientation, race, or cultural background. 1/4 of all caregivers are millennials, and almost 1 in 10 caregivers are over the age of 75. 4 in 10 are male, a figure that's closing in on 50% for millennials, and 61% are employed. In some ways, as many of us know, caregiving is a wonderful gift. It affords an opportunity to give back and spend time with those who have given us so much, and an opportunity to step back and really put things in perspective. But it can also be difficult and a tremendous financial strain. According to an AARP Public Policy Institute study, on average, family caregivers spend about $7,000 caring for their loved ones in 2016, and that's an average of nearly 20% of their income. And some are paying much more. They pay for home modifications like ramps and grab bars that make it easier for aging parents or a loved one with a disability to stay in his or her home. They help with home aids, assisted living, and nursing home care. And they buy everything from medical equipment like wheelchairs to everyday items like food and clothes. They help pay the mortgage, and they help pay insurance premiums. On top of these out-of-pocket costs, many family caregivers experience work-related strains that can affect their family. They adjust their work schedules, often working fewer hours, using unpaid time off for care responsibilities, and taking unpaid time off when needed. Others end up working more hours or taking additional jobs to cover the costs. Many risk their own health and financial security so they can assist their parents, spouses, and other loved ones. They cut back on their own spending, neglect their own health, and forgo saving for the future. Now, these statistics about the cost of caregiving are pretty eye-popping, and many of you are living all or pieces of them. But AARP's commitment to supporting family caregivers isn't about numbers. It's about helping real people and real families who are facing these challenges in their lives. So let me tell you briefly about a real family caregiver who came to our office in Georgia. Jan Beard lives in Georgia. She and her husband, Bob, have been married for 27 years, and they've raised 4 children. In October of 2015, Bob had a stroke and became paralyzed on his left side. He has since learned to walk, but he still can't use his left arm or hand, and he has suffered some cognitive impairment. Every day, Jan helps Bob bathe, dress, and go to the bathroom because he can't do these things alone anymore. Twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, an aide comes to the house to help out. Jan pays $200 a week for the aide's services, and that's about $10,000 each year. The aide used to come 3 days a week, but frankly, it was too expensive. Between the paid caregiver and constantly purchasing new equipment for Bob as he progresses with his rehab, Jan and Bob's savings are taking a hit. She describes the out-of-pocket costs as, quote, never ending. Now, at AARP, supporting family caregivers like Jan is one of our top priorities, and that's why supporting the Credit for Caring Act, a proposed tax credit for eligible working family caregivers who spend at least $2,000 on a variety of caregiving expenses, is a bill we've supported. Now, I'm confident nearly all of you know someone like Jan who would be helped by this legislation. Caregiving is one of those rare issues that crosses generational, geographic, and political lines. This isn't a Democratic issue, it's not a Republican issue, it's a family issue. And that's why we are so pleased to be here today with the Hill and our bipartisan panel, all of whom are sponsors of the Credit for Caring Act. We hope today's discussion will spur even more conversation across this country. And we are grateful to these leaders, who you're going to see in just a moment, who have already engaged their constituents in New York, New Mexico, Wisconsin, and Iowa. We learned most recently in a small town of Harlan, Iowa. This came up in Senator Ernst's discussion in a town hall meeting. So we are grateful for that. We look forward to this discussion. And thank you all very much for being here on what I know is a busy day. Thank you.